Wow, now that is a spicy like-dislike ratio on that last video I did. Figure it might be best if we talk about a slightly different subject and include some sport bike boys in on the fun this time. That way we can all get in on this motorcycling goodness. But Spite, I'm a bikeless bro and motorcycles are just too dang expensive. I can't afford to buy one new, let alone all the hidden costs and fees. Well, don't worry your pretty little head. I've got just the thing for you. A list of the cheapest motorcycles to buy and own. That second part is important because while you might be able to get a screaming deal on a brand spanking new 600, if you're a man below the age of 30, you're probably going to pay through the nose for insurance, and that hopped up engine is going to take a lot to keep it in tip-top shape. Also, if you drop it in your driveway, replacing those plastics might require a whole nother loan. So today I figured I'd pick out a handful of motorcycles from a whole bunch of different segments that can be bought for a good price new or used and won't have you constantly reaching for your wallet. These bikes aren't in any particular order, meaning that bike number 1 might not be the cheapest on the list. So pick the one that looks prettiest to you and get out there on the road with that smug sense of superiority, knowing that you're rolling around on a bike that's just as fast on the street, but isn't going to cost you your left testicle to buy and the right one to maintain. Now, speaking of testicles, bam! Manscaped! Yep, that's right. Was this entire first section of the video a clumsy setup for this ad read? Nope. It was just a happy accident. But while we're talking about ball shavers, you might probably want to invest in one, don't you think? I mean, you probably spent the last few months inside, ordering delivery, lounging around your apartment, pining for those days when you could wander around in public in a banana hammock. And when you finally go back out there, you don't want people to point and scream, and certainly not point and laugh. Don't worry, we've got your back, man. Manscaped has the most advanced groin defoliator in the world, the Lawnmower 3.0, which will have your downstairs smoother than Rossi passing on the outside. But they've got much more for you. The Weed Whacker, which is the Lawnmower 3.0, but approved for nasal applications so you can avoid having those unsightly nose hairs, and the Shears 2.0, which is the best way to make your fingers feel as good as the rest of you. Click that link down below and use the code Yammie to get yourself all these goodies and more for 20% off and free shipping. Now, number 7 on today's list is the WR250R. You might have heard us talk about this bike a few times before, but it's pretty much the best dual sport you can buy. First, it costs $6,699 brand spanking new, which admittedly is a lot for a 250, especially when the DRZ is basically the same price with 150 extra cubes, but you get a whole lot more with the WR. First off, you get fuel injection, and as a DRZ owner myself, I can't express how much of a pain in the ass carburetors are. If I was going to do it all over again, I wouldn't buy my DRZ just for the issues I've had with my carb alone. The WR is making 30 horsepower and 17.5 foot-pounds of torque, which is not much to write home about, but it's more than capable of getting you around town and down some seriously gnarly trails thanks to its 320-pound wet weight. The main reason I put the WR on here, though, is its valve intervals. Let's be honest with ourselves for a minute. We're not all professional mechanics, and being able to bolt on mods does not mean we're knowledgeable enough to do our own valve jobs. So it's a good thing that the valves on the WR250 are staggeringly far apart. Seriously, the valves are due after 26,000 miles. That's crazy. For context, my SMCR's valves are due at 6,000, and my VFR needed its valves done at 12. You're basically never going to have to do them, and if you decide to take it to a shop, the work is really easy since it's just a single, so a pro can knock them out very quickly. It's also a dual sport, which means it costs like $12 a year to insure, and if you bin it, it's really hard to hurt anything, and the plastics are cheap and easy to replace. Funny story, I was actually considering buying a similar motorcycle from Kawasaki, and I ran a quote from my insurance company, and they actually would have paid me to insure that motorcycle with them. I'm not kidding. If you're a budget-conscious beginner on the taller side, I would highly recommend the WR250R. But maybe you're a fast boy, you're a track rat through and through, you don't even want to ride on the street. Well, I offer the Kawasaki Ninja ZX6R as number 6 on today's list. Now, I'm not the all-encompassing font of track day knowledge that Papa Yams is, but I have contracted secondhand track poisoning by spending so much time with them, so I feel like I can confidently offer you this bike as a solid choice. First of all, it's not a 600, it's a 636, which means that you've got a teensy bit more power than the other guys on the track. The 636 puts down 131 horsepower and 52 foot-pounds of torque and weighs in at 423 pounds wet. By comparison, the R6 puts down 116 horsepower and 45 foot foot-pounds of torque and weighs in at 419 pounds. Now, I'm no math magician, but 131 is bigger than 116. Also, if you're picking up this bike as a new track toy, you can get it for $9,999 without ABS, which you're not going to use anyway, to the R6's $12,199. So that's more power for less cash. The perks of choosing a Japanese 600 versus something like a certain European manufacturer that shall not be named are obvious. If Japan can do one thing really well, it's make a bulletproof inline 4 that pulls like a freight train. On to number 5. Okay, so you're not a track rider and you still want a motorcycle for the street that's sporty, but perhaps not so committed. Well, for the budget-conscious street Rossi, you should get yourself a used Yamaha FZ6. Much like the guys rocking FZ1s, if you ask an FZ6 owner about his bike, you are never going to get him to shut up about it. It's sporting a 599cc inline 4 making 98 horsepower and 46 foot-pounds of torque, and it weighs in at around 450 pounds wet, which is a little heavy, but it makes it super stable on long hauls. The great thing about mid-2000s era inline 4s is they weren't anywhere close to as hopped up as the ones that we have nowadays, which means you're less likely to encounter sudden, catastrophic engine implosion. But you still get more than enough power to have fun on the street. Also, thanks to the bike's relaxed ergonomics, it's super comfortable for an all-day cruise. You can get an FZ6 in a half-fairing version, which I recommend, or a standard naked bike, which is a little less common. You can get yourself an FZ6 anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 depending on the mileage and condition, and thanks to the naked bike setup, you're not going to have to be paying sport bike insurance prices. But if you fancy yourself a modern naked bike on the cheap, what should you be getting? Now, I know what you're thinking. This is where I'm going to talk about the FZ6 again, isn't it? Nope, but you are kind of close. Number 4 is actually the SV650. Yep, the other modern naked sport bike that everyone on the internet always recommends. But unlike the FZ6, the SV650 has been around in one form or another since 1999, which means that they're a very well-known platform with a ton of aftermarket support. The SV can be had brand new for $7,099, which is pretty good, but if you spend 5 minutes on the internet, you can find a late-gen SV going for as low as $4,500 lightly used. This is the perfect do-everything motorcycle. You can ride it on the street, you can track prep it, you can scramble it, you can turn it into a cafe racer. It's a lot like the Sportster in that sense. It helps that its V-twin engine has been in use for the better part of 20 years. It's super easy and cheap to maintain, and again, no sport bike insurance prices. But we can actually do you one better. Over on YammieNoob.co, we have an SV650X that we're giving away for free. You can also get entered at YammieNoobMerch.com, where every dollar you spend is an entry to win. But if you use the code 5BIKE, you can get 10% off your order and double entries to win. What's more frugal than a motorcycle you didn't have to buy? Just saying. Number 3 on today's list is our only American entry, and it's the Harley Sportster. Now, I'm not including this just because I'm a Harley simp, which I am, but because if you buy one used, it's actually pretty good value for money. Brand spanking new, the Sportster is a very overpriced motorcycle, considering the fact that one of the first things you're going to do is run out and buy a brand new set of pipes for the bike. But used, someone else has already done all of that for you. It's harder to find a stock Sportster online than it is to find one that's set up the way that you would actually do it. So skip the dealership and hit the classifieds. Now, I'm recommending the Sportster over other bikes from Harley-Davidson because the Evo motor is a low compression dinosaur of an engine. That doesn't mean it's good, but it does, however, mean that it's easy to work on and super cheap to get parts for. This is a great motorcycle to learn how to wrench on your own bike with. You can rip the whole thing apart with basic hand tools and put it together again just as easily. And if you don't fancy working on your own motorcycle, everyone and their mother can repair a Sportster, so you can avoid paying dealership service prices. The 1200 would have cost me about $400 annually to insure where I live, and I live in a high theft area with a theft claim on my insurance history when I ran that quote. In a place where people understand not to touch things that don't belong to them, however, they're even cheaper to insure. You can also grow with this motorcycle if you wanted to, instead of racing out and buying a new one. If you want to make more power, just swap jugs, cams, maps, whatever, and it's really easy compared to other motorcycles and very cheap. Number 2 on today's list is for dads out there everywhere, and it's the VS650. For the life of me, I do not understand why any rational motorcycle would choose to own a VS650, but Ari Henning owns one, so it can't be bad, right? The Versys packs Kawasaki's 650cc parallel twin engine that makes 69 horsepower and 47 foot-pounds of torque. It's a full-on sport touring motorcycle with an LT package featuring saddlebags from the factory. It'll run you $82.99 from the factory, but you can get them used as low as $6,000. The Kawi P-Twin is essentially indestructible, and you're not going to put an exhaust on it because that would upset the neighbors. It also helps that people who pick up a Versys, whatever, they all ride like Ned Flanders, so you're not going to have to worry about insurance rates on this bad boy. Oh wait, no, this is a good boy. It always says please and thank you. It holds the door for everyone. Honestly, I can only recommend the Versys if you literally have no other option. But it is cheap, so I figured I'd throw it in here. Now, we have had a lot of Japanese motorcycles and one Harley, so let's throw in one token Euro bike to balance the universe out a little bit. And my number 1 pick here is a used, and that is key, a used Triumph Bonneville T120. Brand new, those bikes are way too spicy for my taste at $11,800, but used they can be had for as low as $6,000. They have a 1200cc parallel twin that makes 80 horsepower and 77 foot-pounds of torque, which is pretty solid, but they're a bit of a lump at 494 pounds dry. Wet and ready to ride, that's closer to about 530. They are the British Sportster, however, so you can do whatever you want to a Bonneville, and their low compression, under-stressed engine doesn't like to rev out, so you're not going to be beating the hell out of this bike. They're cheap to insure, and relative to other Triumphs, let alone the Ducati Scramblers, they're cheap and easy to maintain. The only problem is that you're going to be having a bunch of boomers walk up to you at a gas station telling you how they had that same bike back in the day, and how they just don't make them like they used to.
Oh, didn't see you there. Why don't you watch this video right over here while you're at it, because this one's over actually. There's nothing left to see, but if you click this one right here, you could keep watching your sweet Papa Yam on video, here on the internet, on YouTube. Click the video. Do it.